Welcome, senior basketball analyst. This is going to be a little bit of a different type of show. Normally, I don't cover the comments and news of just random players or ex players or whoever, reporters, whatever. But Gilbert Arenas has been making some very interesting statements on his Instagram page, and really what the first thing I thought was, this isn't the platform for that. Like, I'm reading this stuff and it appears to be things that he typed on his phone. If you have this much to say, post it in some other format so it's easier to read. You can use a real keyboard, you can punctuate properly and things like that. But he's using Instagram because that's the way that's the new way of communicating, and you communicate from your phone a lot now, and that's what he's doing, because he has a lot of hashtags in it, etc. Just so you could see what I'm talking about. This is the pay. This is the LeBron James analysis from Gilbert Arenas, and as you can see, he put a real, he put a picture that makes LeBron look. It makes him look larger than life, and it makes him look like some kind of comic book superhero. But that's what he really looks like. This is a real photo. Like, I remember seeing this happen. So it's funny how the kind of visual that a guy like LeBron can create, because he's almost a supernatural type of individual. The dude is just superior. Let's call it what it is. But he has some just a kind of a stream of consciousness style of analysis that he's done here, and he makes several statements, and then here are some of the comments behind it. But more importantly, there's been a lot of coverage of what he said in different publications. ESPN has been talking about it. Deadspin has talked about it. So it's getting all levels of attention in terms of people analyzing his analysis. But what I will say is this: this is some of the best stuff that you're going to read. Really, it's worth it, and it's worth it because Gilbert Arenas has a point of view. Gilbert Arenas is intelligent enough and has enough self-confidence to give you legitimate ideas, as opposed to when you turn on most sports analysis shows, they're not giving you ideas. It's just a bunch of silliness. But Gilbert Arenas is breaking down the man's game and telling you what he thinks of it, and I applaud him for that. And just so you understand who Gilbert Arenas is. Gilbert Arenas used to negotiate his contracts without an agent. Okay. So when people want to go around and act like Gilbert Arenas is, you kind of dismiss him as being some kind of just some kind of crazy person or something like that. Well, who's crazy, Gilbert Arenas or you, for giving your money away to a guy for no reason? He's not doing anything for you. You're negotiating a max contract. The NBA Players Association basically gave all your rights away, so all the contracts are basically forms. You can't negotiate that yourself. Why are you paying someone to negotiate that for you? Even if you lost a little bit of money on the deal, how much are you paying the agent? So Gilbert Arenas was the guy that was making money that people would always say his contracts were outrageous. His contracts were outrageous because he's smart and negotiating on his own behalf. So he was getting paid what he was actually worth, as opposed to a lot of these other players that were giving money away. So Gilbert Arenas is clearly a competent individual, and I think his analysis shows that. So let's get into what exactly he said. One of the first things that he says in breaking down his game, because at first he kind of talks in generalities and talks about how this is a guy that has the talent where he could have been a Hall of Famer in any sport, most talented guy we've seen since Bo Jackson. You kids that don't remember Bo Jackson is he was so spectacular. He's kind of become almost like a cartoon type of figure. In fact, he was literally a cartoon for a while with Wayne Gretzky and Michael Jordan. Look that up if you want to have some laughs. But Bo Jackson was the guy at Tecmo Bowl that was completely unstoppable. You've probably seen videos online where people run from one end zone to the other, back to the other end zone, and then back, like they're running wind sprints or something. He could do that all in one play. He was that dominant in Super Tecmo Bowl, or Tecmo Super Bowl, I should say. And he was also, not only was he a 5-yard a carry Pro Bowl running back, he was also an all-star outfielder for the Kansas City Royals all at the same time. There's a funny video of Bo Jackson at a White Sox practice, and Bo Jackson played for the White Sox for a little while at the end of his career. There's a funny video with Bo Jackson at a White Sox practice, and he's talking to one of the current pitchers' sons. And this kid has no idea who he is. And it's funny because Bo, he's very casually explaining to this kid who he is. And the kid is just kind of staring up at him and doesn't really understand the magnitude that this guy was, at the same time, was all pro in 2 professional sports. The guy was a once in a lifetime type of athlete. But LeBron James probably could have done that. He probably could have played, not only could have played some tight end, he probably could have played baseball as well. The guy is that superior. So let's get into the basketball part, because I'm the senior basketball analyst. Let's talk about that part, right? So one of the first things he says is first 2 steps aren't that powerful. That's absolutely true about LeBron James. And if you're watching LeBron, one of his weaknesses is trying to attack quicker players from a standstill, because he's not that quick. And what we mean by quickness is steps in short spaces. So when he's trying to from a standstill either get from here to here, or when he's trying to change direction, he's not that capable of that. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One, he weighs in at least 270 pounds. There's no reason he should be able to change direction very quickly. I liken a lot of LeBron James, a player that was kind of similar to him in terms of being a bigger, small forward, was Ron Artest. And Ron Artest, that was always one of his weaknesses. He didn't have good foot speed in short spaces. When Artest played at about 250, when you're that heavy, you're not going to be quick in small areas. A guy is quicker. And that's why we saw earlier in his career, even when he had more quickness, because LeBron James has lost a lot of his burst in terms of, again, starting from a standstill and accelerating. He's lost a lot of that. When he was younger, Chauncey Billups had some success guarding him on the perimeter, as well as Rajon Rondo. And the reason for that is they're quicker. And before LeBron James had a post game, you could put a smaller guy on him and bother him. It's part of why a guy like Tony Allen can glue himself to Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant can't do anything because Durant does not have a strong post game. He's also not physically strong. He's not any stronger than Allen. Allen might be stronger than him. You put a dude on him like that, he didn't have the quickness to get away. LeBron suffers from some of those things, but he's so great, he masks it and covers it up by, as Arenas stated, and this was a very adept observation, when he's at the point he needs to be moving at all times, he can't change direction because he plays straight up and down. That's also part of his problem. He's got the high dribble, plays straight up and down, similar to the way Magic did. That's the way a bigger guy is not going to get low and have all that lean to his game. He's not really going to do that because that's not the way they play. Then he says this, and this is what everyone seized on, because let's face it, everybody's looking for kind of that clickbait, hot take type of post that they're going to do. So everyone seized on, he's not a number 1 option. And then because all anybody cares about today in terms of basketball is this nonsense notion of being the primary scorer and being this and that. If you read the whole thing and you pay attention to what you're reading, he's not insulting LeBron. What he's basically just stating is that and based on the very next statement he makes, he says he lacks selfishness. That's absolutely true. It's not that LeBron James, and by the way, he makes it very clear what he means by he's not a number 1 option. He's not saying he can't do it. He's saying he chooses not to do it. He needs a number 1 scorer so he can carry the team load, team emphasis put on that by Arenas. He put it in all caps. Team load. One selfish season like Kobe, and he's averaging 40 plus, 11 and 9, and no one could do about it. Direct quote. So for everybody to seize on this comment that he's not a number one option, and then to go, and it, like, you even seeing the people following Arenas on Instagram, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. Who are you to disrespect LeBron? None of this was disrespectful, and it wasn't even really criticisms. He was just breaking down an all-time greats game, and he said I mean, some of this was the most glowing praise you could give a person. He's comparing him to Bo Jackson in terms of his, you know, superior athleticism, you know, talking about how he should have a number one scorer with him so he can carry the team load. What does he mean by that? What he means is LeBron's got other stuff to do other than score. LeBron has to be a number one defender. He has to, not only does he have to stop his man, he has to be one of your best help defenders. LeBron's got to be in the passing lanes. LeBron has to set the table for other players in terms of sometimes playing the point, as he talked about earlier, which he shouldn't have to do. But a lot of times he has to use his scoring, not just bringing the ball up and setting the table. He has to use his own scoring to make sure you can score. He has to board like a madman, as we saw during the finals, or really during the playoffs ever since Kevin Love got hurt. We saw that with them being down a big man and having a just foolishly assembled roster to begin with, he basically had to become a power forward and average double-figure rebounds. This guy has so much on his plate. The notion that he should have to go out and get points is just kind of silly. On a properly constructed roster, LeBron James would play the point and shoot only when he felt like it. That would be what he would do on a properly constructed roster, because then he could use his energy for defense and rebounding, things that are harder to come by. I can find dudes to get buckets, and I can run a good offense and get buckets. You know, the San Antonio Spurs won a title without having a legitimate number one option on the roster. Their finals MVP ended up being Kawhi Leonard, and that dude can't dribble with his left hand. So the notion that you just need somebody to the notion that you need somebody that's always going to be this world-beating number one option that's just a selfish guy like Arenas was and like Kobe is, the notion that you need that is silly. You need that because of bad coaching is really what you need that for. If you have a guy like LeBron James, he should be setting the table. He shouldn't have all this responsibility. He should be able to do other things. But I thought that this was fantastic. I thought this was a fantastic breakdown. Not that he was 100% correct. I didn't agree with everything he said, but it was thoughtful. He was breaking down the game, and I applaud him for that. And he's right. If LeBron James decided he was going to go out there and get 40 a game, there wouldn't be anything anybody could do about it. There will be a couple of teams in the league that could put a guy on him. A guy like Andre Iguodala, a guy like Kawhi Leonard can bother LeBron James. But for the most part, defense has been removed from the game. The organizations have, from ownership down through executives down to the coaches, have all decided the defense doesn't matter. They're going to cut defense first type players. They're not going to reward guys that play defense with playing time and with good salaries. So guys just don't do it. Guys don't do it anymore. In fact, I think some players get penalized for playing good defense. A guy like James Johnson. Guy like James Johnson, lockdown defender, he's a three dunks type of guy, which is the way they play now, can shoot out to the arc, can give you a pump fake, 2 dribbles, dunk on the whole team. He's excellent in transition situations. A guy like that should be starting, and he can never get a long-term deal. And I think the guys that are defense first get penalized. I think centers are not getting penalized. We saw what happened to Hassan Whiteside last season, where he's out of the league and then he finally gets to come back. We saw a guy like we saw Timofey Mozgov get 28 points, and then all of a sudden, mysteriously, he's benched in the next game. And this is in the finals. You're supposed to be trying to win a title. So I think these players get penalized for defense. And since I'm on the subject of defense, that is the one quibble that I have with, or the one glaring omission, I would say, that Arenas Instagram post about LeBron had no talk about his defense, and his defense is really why he's great. I shouldn't say why he's great, why he's an all-time great, and why he's going to go down as a top 5 player. Gilbert, back when, before blocks were recorded and steals were recorded and things like that, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, they controlled the game on both ends of the floor. This wasn't a thing of where a guy is just getting a bunch of points or something like that. And we all know Bill Russell wasn't a great offensive player anyway. The reason why, though, Bill Russell is a champion is because the Celtics drafted well. There was no free agent. You couldn't lose your players no matter how poorly you treated them. Couldn't lose your players. But Bill Russell, on the best player on the team, lockdown defender, controlled the paint. You couldn't do anything in the paint unless you had Wilt Chamberlain. That was the only way you could do anything in the paint against the guy. This is a 20 rebound a game type of player. LeBron James defends multiple positions. At this point in the league, he can play some center because they've, as we've talked about before on this broadcast, the center position has been destroyed by the NBA intentionally. So at this point, he can play 5 positions, offensively and defensively, but particularly defensively. He moves his feet very well in terms of guiding you into areas where it's difficult for you to score. He can contest because he's so big and athletic. He can contest. If you look at what players average against him, he's got guys that shoot 30% against him. He's a devastating defender, devastating. And not only is he locked down on his man, he hustles so hard defensively. And there was a little bit of criticism of him during the finals of where, like, a player would score and LeBron would be yelling at somebody. And people would kind of say sometimes, LeBron may have been more at fault about that than whoever, Tristan or whoever he was yelling at the time. But what you got to understand is LeBron's frustration, because he was literally having to produce for 3 people. That's what he was doing in the finals. He was playing like he was 3 people. You other guys have to play better. So a lot of times he would be like, why do I have to run from the corner all the way to the basket to help? Why can't one of you there's 4 other people out here. Why didn't someone else stop this? So LeBron James, in terms of his defense, is where, to me, he really separates himself from a player like, for example, Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony can get buckets all day long. Carmelo Anthony can also board. Carmelo Anthony averaged 7 or 8 rebounds, not last season, but the year before, because I'm not going to count last season because he kind of, whenever you have these injury-shortened seasons, you kind of throw stats out. But, Melo can board, Melo can score, and Melo has more tools offensively than LeBron has. Melo has a much more refined post game. We know he shoots better. Melo finishes at the basket extremely well. Melo's a better offensive player than LeBron is. It's the defense, man. It's about the defense. That's what really separates LeBron from just being a great player and then saying this is an all-time great, once-in-a-lifetime type of guy. But and this is, by the way, what has made him the best player in the league for so long. Because, like, I remember there was years back, there was a few years ago, people were debating Kobe versus LeBron. There is no comparison. There is no comparison. Kobe can't begin to think about doing a lot of the things that LeBron does defensively. He can't even think about doing it, and doesn't care to either. Doesn't care about it. LeBron is a lockdown defender. Lockdown. So when we compare these players, sometimes, and I'm going to talk about this in the Michael Jordan Kobe comparison, because that's another thing that Gilbert Arenas came out with and is very, very compelling. We're going to address that as well. So If you watch this, make sure that you watch our next episode. It's going to be covering Gilbert Arenas, his Instagram post, his analysis of Michael Jordan versus Kobe Bryant. I think he did a great job there. So yeah, definitely click that next senior basketball analyst so you know that.
Suckers I'm all, they fall and crawl into the pit of purgatory. I go for glory, I'm taking inventory, counting all the